You, not too long ago, I think it was in England, that Duff got up and played with you guys.
Yeah, we're going to do some shows with Duff, too.
How was it to have him on stage with you again? And how
well, it's like, first he was I heard him in the hallway. Talking with
You had no idea?
No, I had no idea. There's people say, oh, it was just coincidence. I don't know what I believe about that for sure, but Duff was in the hallway, and then I invited him to the show, and then Tommy handed him a bass. I said if you wanted to play any songs, let us know, and it would be fine. But Tommy just handed him a bass to play "You Could Be Mine," and Duff was like, I haven't played that song or whatever, and Tommy goes, it has 4 strings, 2 knobs, man, just go for it, And then I ran out there, I'm singing. I have no idea. I look over and there's Duff, So it was fun, and he had a good time. And him and his wife were great. We went out and hung out a little bit, so that was nice.
So, of course, in Duff's first book, It's So Easy and Other Lies, he went into detail about what happened in that meeting for the first time. It was almost like in, I'd say 12 years since Axl and Duff spoke, or 13 years. So it really happened in October of 2010. Guns N' Roses were out on tour. Duff just happened to be in London for what he said was for some business meetings. So in his book, he said, in October, Susan and I took a trip to London. For about a year, I had been working on starting a wealth management company called Meridian Rock, together with a British finance partner named Andy Bottomley. And now we had reached a key moment, hiring a fund manager. We planned to spend a week taking meetings with the final candidates and then making some company decisions. And this was serious stuff, but it was also the final hurdle of another challenge I'd set for myself, to create a company of my own to help others with nuts and bolts of finance and investing. So our British Airways flight touched down at Heathrow Airport on the morning of October 14th at about quarter to noon. My meeting schedule that day was fierce and kicked off with only 2 hours after we landed. We collected our bags, went through customs, met our car at the curb, and then drove down to the Metropolitan Hotel in central London for a quick shower before the first of 3 meetings, staggered at 2-hour intervals until dinner time. As we walked into the hotel lobby, the manager met us to ask us how our trip had gone. Exceptional service is one of the reasons I stay at this hotel whenever I come to London. I thought to myself, but they've already outdone themselves this time. But I remembered Susan and I were staying in an unusually big room, a suite in fact, the hotel's biggest suite. I'm by no means in the habit of staying in extravagant hotel rooms, however, and there was a simple explanation behind our staying in there now. My financial partner had booked the suite, which would also serve as the headquarters and conference room for this week's business, and was being paid for accordingly. Since it was such a lavish space, it seemed perfectly normal when the manager offered to personally escort us up to the room. As we glided upward the elevator, the manager said to me, "So, sir, you are playing a concert this evening?" No, I'm not here for a concert this time. I'm here for other business." "Are you sure you're not playing a concert this evening, sir?" "Yes," Duff replied. "I'm not playing at all on this entire trip." A slightly pained look flashed across his face. "Well, sir, in that case, I feel compelled to tell you that a Mr. Axl Rose is staying in the room adjoining yours, but I'm sure you're already aware." No, I can't say I was aware of that," Duff replied, "but thanks, though it wasn't something gnawed over me over the years." I realized as soon as the hotel manager said Axl's name that I have this one last unresolved connection to the past. 13 years is a long time not to talk to someone with whom you've went through a formative phase of your life. And if I'm completely honest with myself, there was an element of personal doubt involved in it. I guess I wondered whether lingering resentment or just plain anger would emerge from somewhere deep inside me when I finally, inevitably, saw Axl again. Now, time was a luxury that I was short on that day. However, so I didn't have the chance to dwell on the strange coincidence or mull the situation over then. I had to shower fast and had a final brush up with Andy before we started our interview sessions. Andy and I worked for a year solid to get to this point, and the first 2 meetings went great. I was getting my feet underneath me and sort of hitting my stride. Now, during the 3rd meeting, shortly after 6 p.m., the phone rang in what was serving as a conference room. I apologized to the gentleman in the room that answered. "Duff McKagan, I heard?" It was Axl's manager. Okay, I guess the word was out that I was staying in the same hotel. I told him that I was in the middle of a meeting and asked him which room he was in, and I would call him back. So after finishing the last interview of the day, Andy and I went over our notes and had a discussion about the 3 candidates we had met. Only after that did I start to think about my neighbor on the other side of the wall. Though it had been 13 years since we last spoke, I had always assumed that Axel and I would one day meet again. I didn't know how it would happen, though. I just had basically held out hopes and perhaps of rekindling our relationship of some sort at some time. And these days, our only relationship, if you could call it that, consisted of being CC'd on the same emails about various business and legal affairs. Often vitriolic, caustic, or unpleasant emails. This type of language, I found, keeps clients angry and the lawyers employed. Now here I was, a 46-year-old father of 2 girls Axel had never met. Grace provided a real-time gauge of how long it had been since Axel and I had spoken, since my departure from GNR coincided with her birth. In the end, I just went to the door of his hotel room, and people from his entourage stopped me in the hallway, saying, "You can't go in there right now, man," one said. "He's about to get in the shower to get ready for the show tonight." And basically, Duff said, "I've seen him naked before." The door to Axel's room opened a crack. "I thought I heard your voice out there," said Axel. He wasn't naked. He motioned with his hand and said, "Come on in." And so for the first time in much too long, Axel and I met again face to face. Any doubts I had about what might have melted instantly. We hugged, and from there on, there was no awkwardness at all. And it just turned out it wasn't a big deal for either one of us. I don't think, anyways. It was just cool. After so much time had gone and basically lost, we seemed eager to mend personal fence, to bridge the gap between us that had felt wider the longer we had been apart. Now with Axel, or really anyone from my past, I tend to look at how I might handle a similar relationship now. What I did back then remains in the past, and I don't necessarily forget about things, but I only bring them out of memory from time to time to help me better deal with things today. So I was still harboring resentment or anger. I wasn't really sure, but to my relief, the answer I knew now was resounding no. Now the O2 Arena, where Axel's gig was that night, sits at the tip of a thumb of land at a bend on the Thames River. Rather than go there by limo, Axel had a boat ferry him to the venue, and he invited me and Susan to go along. He and I told jokes and old war stories as we cruised through central London on the river, and he reminded me that I once tried to burn down Guerrilla Gardens in Seattle when the club owner withheld our payment. And now Susan knew I had once tried to burn down Guerrilla Gardens too, and that must have been one from the vault that I'd forgotten to tell her. Susan just laughed at it. I showed him pictures of my daughter, and he had a chance to get to know Susan a little bit, now that he had helped her learn something about me. Now, when we arrived at the O2 Arena, everyone there made us feel welcome, and they basically went a long way to making it an enjoyable experience. I always wondered what it would be like to see this band called Guns N' Roses from anywhere but the stage. The guys in Axel's current band are great players and good effing guys. I'd have a chance to hang out with them, a few of them, at least in the context over the years, and I had been a fan of the guy who replaced me on bass, Tommy Stinson, for decades. He was an original member of the legendary punk rock group The Replacements, which was an underground hero band of mine in the 80s, and I must say I had a blast watching them all at the O2 Arena, and the band played awesome. Then during the encore, they hauled me out to play You Could Be Mine, a song that I hadn't played since the Use Your Illusion tour. I heard the crowd of 14,000 people gasp and then go crazy when I emerged from the side of the stage and Tommy handed me his bass. Then I kind of forgot about one of the bridges of the song. Oops, at least Axel sounded good. A little later, I had a chance to go back out and play along with Patience, and though I didn't count the song in, it really felt great. Then Axel invited me and Susan for dinner a few nights later, which basically timed well with one of my meetings, and this was much more leisurely evening and one without questions hanging in the air. Axel and I could let our guard down. We both now knew things were fine. So when the waiter came to take our orders, Axel looked up at him and paused, glanced at me, and then said, "I'll have a virgin mojito, please." And then finally, 4 years later, it shocked a lot of people when Duff McKagan was going to be filling in for Tommy Stinson on a handful of dates in South America and in Vegas that Guns N' Roses were playing. So why exactly did that happen? So Tommy Stinson was on tour with The Replacements, who were doing a reunion tour, and Guns N' Roses had booked some dates around the same time. So Duff McKagan basically said that he was able to fill in and help his buddy Axel out. Here's a story of Duff talking about those 2014 dates and rekindling his friendship with Axel.
Let Go of Resentments, Volume 2. After I agreed to play the shows, I quickly realized that I hadn't played many of these songs in a long time. Axel and I started to communicate, and our initial discourse, via text naturally, reminded me of the levity that made up about 75% of our old relationship. Knock-knock jokes. They're my specialty, really. But I was impressed to discover that Axel had amassed quite a catalog of his own during our time apart. I had to reach deep into my knock-knock war chest to keep up. But then our conversation turned to the songs, the real shit that mattered. It was a bit strange at first, the two of us texting about which GNR songs we were going to do. He and I hadn't had a conversation about a set list in 20 years. 20 years ago, there wasn't even texting. Estranged? Oh yeah, I love that song. My Michelle? Right. In F sharp. Killer. Just killer. Think About You? Shit. Old school. Yes. November Rain? Epic. The song list went on through Welcome to Jungle and Sweet Child, and yeah, just about everything. These were the songs that we sweated and bled for back in that magical time when everything happened so quickly. There's more like that in this book right here.
Nights with Alice Cooper's Behind the Interview is brought to you in part by Napa Auto Parts. Get the job done with Napa Know-How.
Hey, this is Duff McKagan. Thanks for watching Nights with Alice Cooper, my new book that I'm on the show talking about. My second book, How to Be a Man. And I'll see you guys soon somewhere out there.
So that does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And do you guys remember what it was like for Duff to rejoin the band in 2010 for that one show, and then also come back in 2014 for a handful of dates? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button and be sure to subscribe. Take care.